Hello and welcome to another Comics Burst from the Full Force podcast, sponsored by Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, where we take an in-depth look at the newest G.I. Joe comics and related titles of the week. I am Chris McLeod, aka Diagnostic80, and joining me on this burst tonight is the Irish cream of the crop, Paddy Abula Kraken Lennon. So let's get into our first comic for this week. Oh, and I should say, spoilers ahead. Okay, so starting off with Transformers Lost Light issue 17. Letting go. After years of tragedy and misadventure, Rodimus and company are finally happy, eager to see out their days on a peaceful world where contentment is inevitable and good things keep happening, whether they want them to or not. Is there a downside? No. Oh, alright then, yes. And it's a big one. So, okay, with this issue, I felt like the previous issue to this one, 16, where everyone appeared in what, you know, they're all discussing is the Afterspark. They all think they're dead and they're all in this Afterspark area. And then Rodimus was zapped to the guiding hand, a bunch of gigantic godlike Transformers. And at that stage, that was kind of the end sequence. And the whole thing felt a little bit like, you know, okay, well, they're in this place. There wasn't much in the way of mystery as such. I mean, obviously we don't know where they were. We didn't know really where they were, but that wasn't really explored in that first issue. In this issue, they really do explore that there's something else going on here, and it's not what you think. And that got me interested. And actually, I really liked this comic. How about yourself on this one, Paddy?
Yeah, it's great. They're hinting that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than you would think. I think it's quite clear that those 5 robots they're meeting are not the actual guiding hand.
Yeah. I
think it's probably someone pretending to be them. That's more or less stated by the end of it. So as to what this is, it's not really. I think there's 2 more issues left in this arc.
Yeah. And
then we're into the final couple of issues to wrap everything up. So I'll be interested to see what they do with it. But as to who and what they are, I think it's out there. It's kind of left a little bit up in the air. It definitely, as we've spoken for before, I think Lost Light and More Than Meets the Eye are a lot better when he's trying to get the story told. And I think this is another issue that benefits from that, where, hey, we've got 5 more issues now 7 more issues to wrap things up. So they need to start answering questions, and they're starting to do that now. Yeah,
no, I agree with that. I think that, there's when they start exploring the inner meaning of that story arc is when it starts getting interesting. And that's what's happening here. And also we get this kind of a bit of spoiler, of course, but we also get that end element where the reveal at the end where the door's kicked open and there are all of a sudden there are is it Nautica? I think it's Nautica that kicks the door open.
Yeah, and she encounters the scavengers. So it's nice to see them finally meet the main crew after so many years of them having a parallel storyline. So I think it'll be nice to see those 2 groups of characters bounce off each other for the next few issues, and I'll be interested to see how to wrap up the story arc.
Yeah, because there's also another reveal, isn't there? They go into like a ward. And it's like all these different kind of species are kind of hooked up to these mind link type things. So in terms, I think they're kind of hinting at the fact that they, you know, this group, and they start chanting as well, and this group that are kind of like locked into this weird kind of mystical machine. You get the feeling that obviously that is running this, what is more than likely going to be some sort of virtual environment. And I think that's what they're hinting at, aren't they? It's going to be some sort of virtual environment. This kind of like group of, you know, species that are kind of hooked up to it are being almost forced against their will to create this environment, possibly. I mean, that's what I'm gauging from it.
Yeah, I think I have a feeling it's going to end up being something like there's a famous Superman story where he gets his heart's desire.
Yeah.
And Batman and Wonder Woman have to wake him up. I have a feeling this is going to be something along those lines, where essentially this is a dream that the crew have been sucked into, because they're not really given any new information even when they meet their gods.
Yeah.
They encounter people who are dead, but people who they really miss and things like this. So I think this might just be one of those, it's all a dream thing that they're all tapped into.
And then it'll be like Dallas, or was it Dynasty? I can't remember. I think it was Dallas, when one of the guys kind of just like wakes up and the whole story arc was a dream.
Yeah, I have a feeling it'll be something like that, but something to tie into the Getaway story where they're trying to get back to the Lost Light to get Getaway and his mutineers.
Okay, so with Transformers Lost Light, what potating would you give it, Paddy?
I think it's a pretty solid 3.5.
I'm going to go 4 because I'm slightly more positive than you are. And also, I was really just... I was actually drawn in. And as soon as I'm drawn in, you're in the 4 potatoes department for me. If I'm drawn in and I'm entertained, and then when I finish, I'm like, oh, I'm here in real life, I know it's a good one. If I'm starting to like drift off and all drift, no pun intended. In fact, we'll come to drift in a second. But, like, I definitely need that kind of connection with the comic. And sometimes it happens even when in an arc that I'm really interested in. Sometimes I'll drift off and I'll be like, well, maybe, and I have to read it a couple of times to get it in there. But this wasn't the case with Lost Light, so 4 potatoes. Let's move on to the next Transformers-based comic. That is Optimus Prime issues 17 and 18. I thought we'd lump these two together. So in issue 17, The Falling Part 3, Onyx Prime sows the seeds of chaos and panic on Cybertron as he reveals dark secrets, but nothing will prepare Optimus Prime and his allies for Onyx's darkest revelation, which we find out in issue 18, The Falling Interlude. All hope seems lost as Onyx Prime confronts Optimus, but why has Onyx returned? What's his ultimate goal? Millions of years worth of mysteries are solved as the secret history of Onyx Prime is finally revealed as Paddy...
As Shockwave!
As Shockwave. So Onyx Prime is Shockwave, and that is the massive reveal. Now,
it goes a little bit further than that because it's Shockwave from the end of Dark Cybertron, who was, presumably destroyed at the end of Dark Cybertron. But in fact, he was shunted back in time 12 million years until after the guiding hand had left Cybertron, but before the Primes existed. Yeah. And essentially,
he created them!
Shockwave created the Primes and has essentially been the secret manipulator behind the scenes of the IDW universe since its prehistory. Absolutely
mind blown.
Setting up the universe as he saw fit to bring it round. He is essentially, this hasn't been confirmed, but he is presumably the person who created himself, built himself.
My God, of course,
presumably he is the person who instructed his own teacher, Giaxis, in the ways of science. So he is his own teacher. Essentially.
Oh my goodness. It's the most amazing time brain bend ever.
He invented most of the processes which Cybertronians use to become, Transformers.
And he's kept this secret the entire time as well.
Yeah, well, the Shockwave, of course, up until Dark Cybertron had no idea that this was happening, presumably. But yeah, he's stayed there behind the scenes, basically setting everything up so he could take his revenge on the Transformers and build everything for his own benefit.
I love the Megatronus bit as well at the beginning when he meets those guys and one of them doesn't run away and he calls him Megatronus. I love that. And he's like, what's the name? Mm-hmm. Love that.
This is an amazing bit of plotting by John Barber. He's Barber, a lot of people don't like him for particular reasons, but the one thing he is brilliant at is tying stuff together, which he has done with this, because Shockwave, of course, is in IDW's continuity, is the instigator of a lot of stuff already. He created the different types of ore, including Ore 13 on Earth, which is the cause of the thing they're fighting over at the very start of IDW continuity. Shockwave, of course, starred in the first Spotlight issue, and now he's seen to have been the architect, essentially, of the entire continuity.
Do you think this was on John Barber's mind the whole time? Do you think this was something that he had in his mind for a while, or do you think...
Barber is a master at retconning.
Okay, so this is closer to him pushing it into the...
He took, when he was working on the Transformers Movieverse comics for IDW back in about 2007, 2008, 2009, he essentially managed to somehow retroactively fix all of the continuity problems across the first 3 Transformers movies that had been caused by Michael Bay not paying attention to what he was filming and the contradictory scripts and so on. Barbara went behind the scenes in a couple of miniseries and essentially fixed everything. So anything that contradicted itself in the movies was fixed in the comics, and that was always Barbara's talent. So I doubt this has been planned since day one.
Yeah, this is more of like a fix kind of later on.
This is an amazing bit of retconning, and it's great. I love this. I love these two issues. I think it's paid off the IDW. It's paid off Barbara's work in particular, because Barbara used Shockwave quite a bit in Dark Cybertron is his series. Obviously, Shockwave is a major villain in previous runs Barbara had done. So this is a very nice payoff using that character.
Yeah, I love the fact that you kind of need this run to build up to this massive reveal, and like for a while I didn't really see what was going on. I didn't really see where it was going. Like you say, I think we spoke about it and said like the artwork was one of the main reasons we were kind of sticking around with some of it. But then for that reveal, it kind of makes everything it kind of really ups this story arc to a massive degree. And the fact that I feel like issue 17 was a really nice build up to it, like a nice pacey build up to it as well.
Yeah.
So there was kind of like a lot going on that in issue 17 that I couldn't quite.
Yeah.
I didn't really know where it was going. There was a lot of like different splinter things going on, weren't there?
And particularly everything going wrong so quickly.
Yeah.
Which of course makes sense now, because he was enacting a plan that he'd been planning for 12 million years to get his revenge on Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
And, the Cybertronian race as a whole. So the fact that he was able to manipulate events so quickly in issue 17 is because he had it planned out to the second.
A long time.
He knew how these people were going to react, because he had a hand in creating most of them.
Yeah, which is just it's just genius. And in terms of like, kind of to tie off the end of, coming to the end of this IDW universe, it really does give it a really kind of monumental feel to it now, because it's got this really big twist, this really big thing that I was shocked when I read it. Again, no pun intended. I was shockwaved when I read this, and as soon as I saw that, but when it was one of those things where I was kind of like, and then as I was reading the kind of backstory to it, I'm like, no. And the more you kind of like cut through that, the more you're just like, this is just insane. So I don't know. I think this is a pretty solid couple of issues. If we look at the arc in total, I would probably give it about kind of 4, and that's only because like in the previous issues I just felt it was a little bit trudgy, a little bit kind of going through the motions, all in one place, not really getting anywhere. But that last issue has dragged it right up for me, and it would be like, and I don't really know how else you could do it. I think there's only one way you could really like expose that kind of play. Do you know what I mean? You couldn't really do it with lots of stuff going on that was super interesting, because you just, you've got to kind of keep that mystery going, build a little bit of tension, and then boom, it's like, there you go. So, yeah, overall, what would you give the 2 issues in terms of the potating, Paddy? Overall,
I'm going to give them a 4.
Yeah.
I think it just works. It's a genuinely shocking reveal, because, Barbara, the Optimus Prime and Robots in Disguise books had suffered from the fact that they didn't really have any good villains. They had to use... Barbara was kind of hamstrung because he had to do a Combiner War series, he had to do a Titans Return series, and neither of those really had a decent enemy in it.
Yeah.
Titans Return was a bit of a damn squib itself. So the fact that he's finally been able to pay off one of these story arcs with an actual villain who is going to be, it was impossible to kill because they've tried a number of occasions, and who has outtaught the Transformers in every single possible way. So I think it's a really great setup. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he ties up this arc. And I also think it's a nice capper to, now that we know the continuity is ending over the next couple of months, I think it's a great capper to the IDW series as a whole.
Yeah.
Because now they can reboot it and say, well, actually we give you a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was all, and this entire continuity, for want of a better word, has been tainted by Shockwave. This is Shockwave's story, essentially, the last 10 years of comics.
Shockwave's story, that'll be his autobiography.
Yeah, but it's he has been the main driving force behind the beginning of it with the first Spotlight and the infiltration and escalation story
Yeah,
arcs,
yeah.
and now he's instrumental in the big halfway point, which is Dark Cybertron. He was the main villain,
Yeah.
and that was 7 years into the run, and halfway through the run, and now he's the big villain at the end. So it really gives him a place as probably the greatest villain in the history of Transformers.
Amazing. Do you think anyone foresaw this happening? Was there any chatter on the radio waves about this?
No, and like I said, I don't think so. I don't think that. I think it's a bit of a shock.
It took me by surprise, but
excuse the pun to the Transformers fan base, but also it makes sense.
Yeah.
So the reaction I've seen to it has actually been very, very good. And, nobody really expected it, to be honest. People just figured this would be another story arc like Titan's Return was, which also involved a previous leader of Cybertron coming back and being a bad guy.
Yeah.
We just assumed, oh no, it's this again. And they've managed to turn it on its head, which I don't think many people expected.
Yeah, so that concludes our segment on Optimus Prime. Obviously, the run will still be continuing after this. We've still got a bunch of issues to go. But at the moment, this massive reveal has really put the Transformers up against it. Anyway, moving on, we will get into we'll get into our G.I. Joe issue of this week, which is G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero versus the $6 Million Man, issue 3, longest title in human history. The Cobra-controlled $6 Million Man clutches Hawk and the Joes in his indomitable grip, while Scarlet and her team continue an impossible ascent to Cobra Commander's throne room. Though all seems lost for the real American heroes, an incredible blast from the past could be the Joe's secret to overcoming the odds of evil. Now, this one was just a romp from start to finish, wasn't it? It was just an absolute action blast. We haven't really moved anywhere in terms of location. Everyone is still pretty much in the same place. You've got some of the Joes were in the bank. Mm-hmm. You've got some of the Joes that are in the tower going up to try and kind of get Cobra Commander at the top of the tower.
And you've got Hawk getting kicked out of him by the $6 million man outside.
And then you get a team turn up out of the blue just when you think Hawk's going to get screwed over. The helicopter team comes in and drops Mike Power, and then Mike Power and $6 Million Man Steve Austin go at it. And again, just a fun romp of a comic. There's not much in the way of...
It's just one big, long action sequence. It is the 20 minutes, it's the penultimate 10 minutes of an action movie now, essentially, as they all fight and get in place for the grand finale. So there's not a whole lot to talk about. It continues on. It's a strong issue in the same way that the previous two issues were strong, but it is 16 pages of people slapping each other. Let's not beat around the bush.
Exactly. I mean, there's not much in the way of text either, so you get through it very, very quickly. We also have, so with all of the stuff that's going on, Cobra is still dilly-dallying over killing Hawk because, the Baroness has got something.
Because it's Cobra.
She's got something she's got a bee in her bonnet. Everyone else is going, just kill him. Just kill him already. Even like Zartan and...
Blood.
Major Blood has a go, doesn't
he?
So Major Blood and Zartan are both going, just kill him for sake, without the F word. Although I'm sure if that was reality, they would be. And Baroness is going, no, you, I'm doing this. This is my, I'm running the show. And then just as she's kind of going on about how, it's her show, in come the rescue party in a Tomahawk and a Dragonfly, drop Mike Power off. A couple of Joes turn up as well, and then that gives the Joes that are trapped in the bank an opportunity to get out. We switch to the focus on the building, going up going up the stairs, as it were, and you have Scarlet Stalker, Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes is kind of fannying about elsewhere, trying to get some kind of systems up and running. There's another one in that group, isn't there? Sorry, I just completely forgot.
Recondo.
Oh, and Recondo. So thanks to Snake Eyes, they managed to ascend this tower a little quicker. They unfortunately get stopped by Tomax and Zaymot. They're getting their asses kicked. Snake Eyes is busy, and it was revealed at the end that he's met Storm Shadow. So the two of them are about to kick off as well. So those two are squaring up to each other on the last panel, which is a cool, nice panel. It seems to be like the only reveal that's ever done in G.I. Joe. It's the Snake Eyes Storm Shadow reveal. Mm-hmm. But then if you go back a little bit, Mike Power and the $6 Million Man are having this big fight, and Mike Powell actually pulls the control nuggets off Steve Austin's temples, and he kind of collapses. But we don't see much else of that, do we? So I'm assuming in the next issue, Steve Austin will be back to his senses again.
Yeah, I mean, the next issue is the last issue, so I fully expect Steve Austin to be back to his senses. I fully expect the Snake Eye Storm Shadow fight to be a draw, and I fully expect Cobra Commander to escape in a helicopter, cursing the G.I. Joes in the last page,
waving his fist.
You can see where this is going, I think.
But it's
which
still
is not
fun.
to say it's not to say it's not a fun series. It is doing exactly what it needs to do with these characters. It's having a bit of fun with them. I think probably 4 issues is about as far as you could stretch this. Realistically, it's a nice little nostalgia blast. Nice art. It clips along, and I expect it to wrap up fairly neatly in a bow at the end of the next into the next issue.
Would you feel positive about them doing more crossovers like this in the future, like the kind of little small 4-issue runs that kind of splinter off from A Real American Hero, maybe set it in different time periods like they have done with this one?
I actually think this is probably the best way to go with G.I. Joe as a comics property going forward. Larry's got the crazy long continuity thing wrapped up, and IDW doing their own separate continuity never really worked for them, except for maybe the first couple of years. As soon as they released the Real American Hero follow-on book, people were like, well, I'll just read that's what I'm used to. And the focus is taking off IDW's own continuity. I do think that G.I. Joe probably would work best as a mini-series focused title. I don't think there's enough there to keep it. You can't. There isn't enough of a market to keep 2 ongoing G.I. Joe titles.
Yeah.
So if you've got Larry writing one, the fans from the 80s are going to gravitate naturally towards Larry's book.
Yeah.
There's just no way about it. So I think they're probably better off doing stuff like this, 4 or 5 issue mini-series. Take a group of G.I. Joe characters and do something with them. Do from different eras. I wouldn't mind seeing an Adventure Team comic.
Oh, that'd be cool, yeah.
For 4 or 5 issues, more kind of special missions-y sort of stuff. Maybe use some of the sub-teams in a couple of issues.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? So like a Tiger Force and Night Force kind of spotlight or something like that would be really cool.
like a little mini-series with a mission from them, and they can let me do my Eco-Force pitch. And that's something I think we've mentioned before in the podcast. There's so many G.I. Joe characters.
Yeah.
The only ever, and it's something this series is guilty of as well, they're using the same 7 G.I. Joe characters.
Yeah.
And the same 5 or 6 Cobra characters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
And there must be 500 characters across G.I. Joe in its various iterations.
Probably more.
It'd be nice to see if somebody gave a few of those kind of B-listers a chance.
I know Larry's kind of done it with there'll be appearances in the background, or there'll be like the Snake Eyes funeral was like a one where they just littered the whole comic with every character that they could in that run.
None of them even had a line of dialogue.
Exactly. But there's never any development in any of them. There was for a little while. We had a couple of arcs where you had people like Long Range, and you had some other, like a bunch of others kind of filtered in there as well that started getting a bit of a bit of a viewpoint. But as soon as it kind of reverted back to the Dawn story, it was right. We'll stick with Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Zartan, Firefly, etc., etc.
And even the one shots he's doing over the next few months,
all the standard
the same
issue.
7 characters. Yeah, the same standard characters: Duke, Scarlet, Stalker, whoever.
Destro, Snake Armor.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Well, let's do the potatings for G.I. Joe versus the $6 Million Man. What would you give it for this issue?
I'm going to go 3.5.
3.5. I'm going to go with. I'm actually, John. I'm gonna mirror what you're saying. I'm gonna go with 3.5 as well, because I did really enjoy it. But yeah, it's one of those things where everything's very predictable. But again, it's not a bad thing. It's still one of those things I literally zipped through. I feel like it was almost like setting it up for number 4, and I think 4 could be one. It can either be one of those ones that fizzes out a little bit at the end, or it could be a nice fun ending with like a something else thrown in there for the fans. But we'll see how it goes. Okay, so that's it for this installment of the Full Force Comics Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host Paddy. See you next time, and as always, Full Force. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback, questions or just a troll. Look out for more of these comic bursts on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, our Facebook page, Twitter feed and YouTube channel from now on. Full Force. And a big shout out to our sponsors, Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, located at 601 Business Loop 70 West Suite 263, located in the Parkade Center, Columbia, Missouri. You can visit their website at distantplanetcomics.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/distantplanetcomics.